Okay, so if you check your textbook on page 290, okay, you talk about product differentiation. It said the final structure barrier to entry is product differentiation. So for differentiation, probably you know that in calculus, okay? But here we read further. Consumers view new products as imperfect substitute for a variety of reasons, including differences in quality, performance, or reputation. So that's what I just told you, because some of the, really little differences. So people suppose Apple smartphone is better, okay, performance better, but really that's not the case. And we talked about computer before, right? For all the computers that we use, either it is desktop or the notebook, the CPU is the same. All come from Intel, right? So that's the reason I tell you that advertisement really is not a good thing, because it try to convince you that its products are different from the others. Okay, and so here we look at table 11.1b, and there are some interesting things. It talk about leading United States advertisers in 2001. So you can see, there's an order here. Okay, it is from the advertising sale percentage. So on top means that they spend more on advertising out of their sales. The first one is L'Oreal. So 叶一方
在
So what is L'Oreal?
No.
Do you have textbook with you? Sorry, you can see the PowerPoint, right?
Oh.
The first one, L'Oreal. The second one, Estée Lauder. So what is Estée Lauder?
I don't know.
Really? Wang Xiaowei, do you have any idea about L'Oreal, Estée Lauder?
可以再说一次吗？
Can you check PPT? You check the screen. The first one, L'Oreal. The second one, Estée Lauder.
很少。
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So the first company is called L'Oreal. What is L'Oreal?
是一个那个
What's that in Mandarin?
牌吗？还是什么？
Estée Lauder. 郑怡琳。
在
What is L'Oreal?
化妆品的牌子。
So what's that in Mandarin? I know Estée Lauder. It's probably 雅诗兰黛, right? Estée Lauder. What's the first one? L'Oreal. Anyway, after 2 years of the job, you will know what's what. Anyway.
欧莱雅吗？
Sounds like that. Anyway, the third one is McDonald's. So it's kind of interesting, right? Why McDonald's have to spend so much on advertising? So, I mean, McDonald's, anything special? Anyway. And if you look at the sixth one, okay, Wendy's, another fast food franchise. And the eighth one, General Mills, is cereal, and Mattel. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So if you check 14 and 15, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they all spend a lot on advertising. It's kind of interesting. And 17, Pfizer. Pfizer is a drug company we call pharmaceutical. it's kind of interesting why they have to spend so much on advertising, because they have very special targets, doctors. Okay, let's move on. So you talk about strategic barriers to entry. So here we have limit pricing and predatory pricing and excess capacity. So the example I gave you on Microsoft's IE and Netscape, okay, is sort of like that. And there's really no one can beat Microsoft, because what they offer you is free, okay, IE for free. And so because of that, you know, uh, of course, because of that, also because of that, a lot of firms sue Microsoft for antitrust. Okay, antitrust. 张志伟
是
，What's antitrust? Anti.
N
Anti means against.
反吗？
Right. Trust.
Trust.
So what's trust?
Trust 是信任，
Right. What else?
没有这个就反垄断了，这个我知道。
Exactly. Okay, exactly. In Mandarin, it's called 托拉斯. Okay, antitrust. This is what we call predatory pricing. Okay, so usually, if there's a company knows another company want to join in, sometimes they would do something like that. So, for example, there are two big companies producing CPU. One is Intel, the other is AMD. Okay, so this story was about 5 years ago. Asus, okay, Asus and the other one, what's that? Anyway, I can't remember that. So anyway, Asus, let us use Asus. Asus produce computers and notebooks, and they use CPUs. And the major player is Intel. And somehow, of course, if you are the major player in the market, you don't like competition. And so, as a matter of fact, Intel give extra discounts to Asus if they use only Intel CPUs. And so this is unfair competition, okay? Because, of course, a company can offer discounts of their product if someone, purchase a lot. But this is different, okay? They want to exclude, they want to reduce the market for AMD. And this is not right, okay? Also, something happened before in Italy, okay? The competition between Pepsi Cola and the other one is Coca-Cola. And so in the market, okay, probably everyone have been to a supermarket. So where is where you put your product is actually very important, okay? Suppose your product is really high, consumers cannot reach it. Or if it's really low at the bottom, okay, consumers have to bend down to pick it up. So in this case, if you want to put your products probably along the eyesight of consumers, okay, that is the best. Of course, you're gonna have to pay a higher price for that. But the story in Italy is that Coca-Cola will give extra discounts to supermarkets if they do not sell Pepsi. Okay, so that's about the same story with Intel and AMD. Okay. So excess capacity. So as an entry barrier, the decision to build large amounts of capacity so that incumbents can respond aggressively to entry by dramatically increasing output and lowering price. Okay, so this is what we call excess capacity. And excess capacity can increase the cost advantages for the incumbents. So that's also one way. Okay, the last part, government imposed entry barriers exist in markets where the government decides that it is more efficient to have only one monopoly producer. In such markets, the government often regulates output and price. So in Taiwan, we have power, industry, and also water. So it's kind of hard to imagine for us, in the US, the water companies are privately run, and the same thing for power plants. But really, that's good because if you have competition, okay, if you have competition, generally the production going to be more efficient, and you're going to have a lower price. And so in Taiwan, really, if you say you're going to install solar panels on your rooftop and to produce to generate power, but you have to sell it back to Taipower. So really, you have to limited ability to set your price. So that's not quite nice. Anyway. Okay, so the theory of pure monopoly. So it's a different kind of pricing strategy. Okay, in perfect competition, producers are price takers. So they have to use P is equal to MC, marginal cost, to set the optimal production level. But for monopoly, it's different. Okay, if you check textbook, it is on page 294, page 295. Because we don't have blackboard here, so 2 weeks from now, so I'm going to show how to do this kind of calculation, algebra, okay, in class. And it's very important because it will be in the final. Okay, these kind of questions will be in the final. Okay. Okay, so let's look at figure 11.5. So you have a demand curve, and you have quantity on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. And so there are 3 parts, as you can see that from the PPT. So if the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, okay, the marginal revenue is positive. Okay, if the elasticity of demand is equal to 1, the marginal revenue is equal to 0. And if the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, okay, the marginal revenue is negative. So what does that mean? That means a monopolist will not produce when the elasticity of demand, the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1 or less than 1. Because at that point, marginal revenue is equal to 0. And the other one, okay, marginal revenue is less than 0. Because what you pay is positive. Okay, for whatever resources, factors, production, you have to pay positive price. But the marginal revenue is less than 0 or equal to 0. It doesn't make sense. So I have discussed this issue a week ago. So it's kind of strange, right? We have a lot of products, okay, with price of elasticity of demand less than 1, okay? So what does that mean? Is there a contradiction here? Because we say for a monopolist, it will not produce at the point price elasticity of demand is less than or equal to 1. But why some products, okay, would have price elasticity of demand that is less than 1? Okay, it's a totally different issue here, because one is called market demand and the other one is the demand faced by individual producer. As you have known, before the midterm exam, sorry, it's less this semester. A lot of food, okay, necessities, the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. And for those kind of products, they are generally, okay, close to perfect competition. So in those cases, you see that individual firm, the demand they face, they are price takers. So the price of elasticity of demand they face is actually infinite. Okay, so because of that, P for them, to choose a optimal production level, it is P equal to MC. Okay, and here we are talking about only one producer, one seller. So the story is a little bit different. Okay, let's move on. So here you see a monopolist profit maximizing output and price. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell you what's going on here, but anyway, it will be easier if I have a blackboard that I can draw a picture for you. So anyway, so for a competitive firm, okay, we look at figure 11.6. For a competitive firm, the way to choose market equilibrium, it is MC equal to demand, okay, because producers, for competitive firms, they are price takers. So when MC intersects demand curve, that is the way they choose. Let's see if I can use. Okay, good. Let me use this. Okay, and this one. Okay. Let me mark this as C. Okay. So this point is the marginal cost curve intersects with demand curve. So this is the way perfect competition to choose a production level. So let us say here you have QC, okay? And here the price $20, that is for the competitive market, okay? The equilibrium price. But for a monopolist, okay, because they can set their price, and so the condition for them to choose the optimal production level is MR is equal to MC. So MR is here, the blue line, okay? And MC is the same thing here, the red line here. So you get the production level is equal to 40, okay? And the price, okay? You want to get to the price, you need to check the demand curve. And so here, the price is equal to 60. So apparently, you can tell in this case, the monopolist charge a much higher price, and the quantity, the production is a lot less. And here, let us compare the consumer surplus. So for the monopolist, in this case, the price is higher, the quantity is lower, so the consumer surplus is this, as I shaded in red, okay, this little triangle. So this little triangle is the consumer surplus under a monopoly, okay, under a monopoly. And if you look at the perfect competition case, okay, so let me mark this as A, okay, and here 20 you have B, and here it is C, okay, as I say. So if you look at consumer surplus, there's a big difference. Okay, there's a big difference. So under monopoly, you only have a little triangle here, okay? But when it is under perfect competition, you have a big triangle, okay? You have a big triangle. And if we're going to compare the welfare under monopoly and perfect competition, you can see part of the consumer surplus, when it comes to monopoly, this part, okay, this rectangle that I'm drawing here becomes part of the profit for a monopolist, okay? And let me use a different color here. So the big triangle ABC, okay, for this part, it's the consumer surplus under perfect competition. But when it comes to monopoly, only this trapezoid is there, okay? And so part of the consumer under perfect competition now becomes the profit for the monopolist. And here, this blue triangle here, okay? You can see the consumer do not get it, the producer does not get it either. So this is what we call deadweight loss. This is what we call deadweight loss. So it's an efficient loss due to higher price and lower production level. So in the test, okay, in the final exam, we will have such question. Okay, so you got to be very careful. In the final exam, we will have a question, okay, first on how monopolies choose their optimal production level and how to set a price, and also make a comparison for a monopoly case with respect to perfect competition. Okay, let's move on. So here you can check what's going on in terms of the marginal revenue. Okay, so here you have quantity. So let me change the color of this pen. Okay, so you have quantity 10, 20, 30, 40 to 100. And of course, the higher the price, okay, the lower the quantity demanded. Okay, so when the price is 100, the quantity demanded is 0, and 90, 80, 70, 60, etc. And now you can see total revenue here, okay, total revenue, okay. So you have, when the price is 90 and quantity demanded 10, the total revenue 900, and then you have 1600, 2100, etc. Okay. And so in this case, we need to have a column called marginal revenue. Okay, so let me put down here. Marginal revenue. So because demand curve now becomes the average revenue for a monopolist, and you know demand curve is downward sloping. And so because of that, the average revenue is going down, means marginal revenue is always decreasing. So here you have 900, okay? Marginal revenue 900, and then you have 700. Let me just put down 7, okay? 700, and then it's going to be 500, and then 300, and then 100, and then now it becomes negative. Okay, negative 1, negative 300, etc. So from here you can tell if it is a perfect competition, the price is constant for the perfect competition firms. But for a monopolist, because they can set up the price, okay? So you can tell the more they sell, they have to decrease the price. And so you can see the marginal revenue is going down. And so the marginal cost is here. And so let us see where would the monopoly set up the price. Okay, average cost. Anyway, let us move on. So here it tells you how to analyze it from a chart. Okay, so this diagram shows you this is total revenue. Okay, you look at it, this total revenue, and the slope of total revenue is marginal revenue, and here is the total cost, and slope of that is marginal cost. So marginal cost equals to marginal revenue, then you can set up the price and get to the production level. Okay, so this is the long run equilibrium. And so because there's a profit here, okay, there's a profit here, so somehow some people may want to find a way to join the market. So before 1980s, there is only one commercial airliner, okay, produced a commercial airplane producer, that's Boeing. And after 1990s, then you have another called Airbus. And the same thing applies to the CPUs for personal computers. We only have Intel, right? But because such a big profits here, so you have AMD join it. Okay. So we will leave the elaboration here when we meet in class. Okay, that's easier because as you can tell, when I use this cursor, is very awkward, not easy to move it. Okay. Here we talk about multi-plant monopolist. So multi-plant means a monopolist has several factories, and a monopolist can also have many different markets. And so what would be the condition for them to maximize profit? And it is quite simple. So let me put it down for you. So suppose it has many markets. So the marginal revenue from market one, must be equal to the marginal revenue from market two. And the same thing. Now, this monopolist has two factories. So when they produce, they need to have MCA is equal to MCB. Okay, MCA equals MCB. And generally, there is a rule here. And later on, we're going to discuss the issue of price discrimination. So if you look at, this figure 11.9, actually example is in page 300 and page 301. So in this case, you follow the formula that we just mentioned but not discussed. So MR, okay, marginal revenue, is equal to price times 1 minus 1 over the absolute value of price elasticity of demand. Oh, let me repeat this again. Marginal revenue is equal to price times 1 minus 1 over price elasticity of demand. And because of that, this is the pricing strategy for a monopolist if it has two markets. So what does that mean? That means if a market has a higher price elasticity of demand, then the price will be lower. And if the price elasticity of demand is lower for the market, then it will have a higher price. And the rationale is quite easy, okay? Because if some consumers, they have very high elasticity of demand, it means that they are sensitive to price. And if price goes up or goes down a little bit, they're going to react a lot. The quantity changes will be a lot. And so because of that, when a market has higher price elasticity of demand, the producer has to charge a lower price. On the other hand, if the price elasticity of demand is quite low, then that means the reaction from consumers is very low. And so they can charge a higher price. And, several countries have done this way. Okay, for example, South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. Oftentimes, they export a lot of products overseas, let us say to the United States. And they charge a higher price in the domestic market, but a lower price in the US. The reason is that there's not a competition in the US. So the price elasticity of demand is very high in the US, but very low in domestic market in Taiwan, in South Korea, and Japan. So oftentimes, a lot of companies, they charge a higher price, okay, to subsidize, the competition they have to confront in the United States. And so after, around 1980s and 1990s, when Taiwanese are free to go overseas for tourism, some of them choose to purchase TV, microwaves, all these kind of products, back to Taiwan. Why? Because it's just too expensive in Taiwan. But now we don't have this kind of issues because Taiwan has joined WTO, and so we cannot impose tariffs freely. And so because of that, a lot of this kind of home appliances are imported, and so the price is lower. So we don't have to do stupid things, go to the US and purchase a microwave. It's very heavy, and the value is just limited. Okay, let's move on. And if you look at figure 11.9, the elaboration is quite complicated. Okay, so in the homework, we also have such kind of questions. So anyway, 2 weeks from now, when we discuss, when we meet in person, we will do this again. I will show you how to calculate all these kind of questions. And of course, you have MCA equal MCB. Suppose you have n factories. So MC1 must be equal to MC2, must equal to MCN. And then if you have multi-markets, then you have MR1 equals MR2. Whenever there's a market, you get more revenue. So the marginal revenue is higher, then you sell more in this market. And because of that, so if you sell more, the marginal revenue will go down. And so to the point that the marginal revenue across all the markets are equal. And that is the same thing with the multi-plan monopolist. If some factory have a higher marginal cost, you should decrease the production level. And if some has lower marginal cost, you should increase production until the point that all across the factories have the same marginal cost. Okay, let's move on. It said important implications of the monopoly model. It said the point is a monopolist does not have a supply curve. Okay, very important here. Why? Because the important thing for a monopolist is demand. Okay, so if you look at figure 11.10, you can see that with the same cost structure, okay, the red line, horizontal red line, it is the marginal cost curve, okay? But you can see you have D1 and you have D2, right? So from here, you can see the same kind of marginal cost structure, but when you have different kind of demand, the price is different and the production level is different, okay? So when we discuss the perfect competition market, we say the supply curve is the intersection of MC with AC, or marginal cost curve, and average cost curve, the section of MC above the intersection of AC and MC. Okay, so that is the supply curve for perfect competitive industries. But for a monopoly, because what really matters is the demand. So when the demand changes, the pricing strategy changes. So different kind of demand curve give you different kind of marginal revenue, even though your marginal cost is the same. But here, because of the different demand curve, you get different marginal revenue. So then you have different pricing strategy. Okay. And so the second point, no profit maximizing monopolists would ever charge a price where demand is inelastic. That's what I said. Because price is margin revenue is equal to price times 1 minus 1 over price elasticity of demand. Because of that, if demand is inelastic, the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. Then the marginal revenue is going to be negative. So it will never happen. And here the third point is that a decrease in demand may or may not increase the price. So here is the case that you can tell, right? So for D2, actually the demand is much bigger, okay? But you can see in this case, the price is less than the one under D1, okay? Even though the demand is much less, but you know, with a less demand, actually the price is higher. Okay. Okay. The next part is measuring the extent of monopoly power. It's called the Lerner index. Okay, the Lerner index. The Lerner index is equal to P minus MC over P, and this is equal to 1 over the price elasticity of demand. Okay, and it can range from 0 to 1. Okay, range from 0 to 1. And if you look at, let us see, textbook, page 304. Okay, if you look at page 304, then you can see the Lerner index actually comes from the formula of margin revenue. So margin revenue equal to price times 1 minus 1 over price elasticity of demand equals MC. Okay, and so this is the way you get Lerner index. Okay, let's move on. So here you can see a lot of the industries with the Lerner index, okay, to measure market power. So there are different authors, okay, they measure the monopoly power of each market. So first one, automobile, okay, car industry, okay. So from here we can tell the competition is not that fierce because, oh sorry, but because here you are looking at 1981. So here in 2022, we only have big three car companies. So the first one, GM, the second, Ford, and another one is called Chrysler. So the story will be different in 1981 because there are not many more companies then. And the other one, 1982, talk about rubber, textile. So we can see textile, rubber, okay, the competition is a little bit more. And electrical machinery, okay, you only have several big producers. Tobacco, monopoly, a typical monopoly, because there are not many tobacco producers. And here, railway, okay, if this case is in Taiwan, it's going to be equal to 1 because we only have one railway company. But my point is not quite right because as we talk about this in the first hour, because railway have to compete with bus. Okay, so it's not necessarily equal to 1 even in Taiwan. Okay, and if you check 1984 about banks, okay, you have large banks, so it's very close to monopoly. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So we are now going to discuss the efficiency effects of monopoly. We say for a monopolist, usually they're going to charge a high price and producing less. So because of that, the production efficiency is usually not quite desirable. It's not, as we talk about perfect competition, the price is equal to LAC is equal to LMC. So the production level is at the minimum of AC. So that's the most efficient level of production. For monopoly, let's look at the first one, allocative efficiency. So the socially optimal amount of good to produce where the marginal benefit of producing another unit equals its marginal cost. So in this case, it is marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So the price is actually higher than the marginal cost. Okay. So in this case, okay, it's not quite efficient there. And the second part is about deadweight loss. And that's we have talked about using a diagram. Okay. We talk about, because the production level is lower and the price is higher, so then we have deadweight loss. So a part of the consumer surplus that is belong to consumers, but when a perfect competitive market turn into a monopoly, somehow no one gets it. Okay, and so that's what we call deadweight loss. So these are the losses of consumer and producer surplus that are not transferred to other parties, and therefore measure the misallocation of resources. For productive efficiency, okay, we say the production level is not quite desirable, is not at the lowest point of average cost. So because of that, the production efficiency is lost. Okay, so this is the chart. We talk about the comparison with a monopoly and perfect competition. So let me mark this again. So this point, let me mark it X, okay? And this point, let me mark it M. So under perfect competition, the supply curve intersects demand curve. That is where a competitive market finds the equilibrium. And so that's X here. And for a monopoly, it is marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So it is here. Let me mark it little m. Okay. So we can see under a perfect competition, consumer has A, B, and D, okay, as the consumer surplus. Okay, so this part is the consumer surplus. But when it is under a monopoly, okay, consumer only can keep A. B and D is gone. B is now part of the profit of a monopolist, okay? And D is gone. And let us look at producer surplus. So when under perfect competition, okay, what you have is C plus E. So this is producer surplus. But when it is under a monopolist, you can see producer surplus now has only C and E is gone. So D plus E is what we call deadweight loss. Okay, time is about up. So we're going to stop here. And next week, we're going to start from figure 11.11. Thank you.